Hey guys, I'm Karen. Welcome back to the Bad Trip Files. Today, we'll be sharing a chilling trip gone wrong story that shows just how dangerous mislabelled research chemicals can be. This report comes from Joan Moreau, who posted it on Erowid on October 12, 2009. He thought he was buying 2C-B-FLY, a psychedelic he was already familiar with. But what he actually received was Bromo-DragonFLY, an extremely potent and far more dangerous compound. After taking what he believed was only a small amount, his body spiraled into chaos. Hallucinations, confusion, violent sweating, and a desperate rush to the emergency room. This isn't just a story about a bad trip. It's a warning about the dangers of unverified substances, the risks of the research chemical market, and why harm reduction tools like testing kits are so important. The author wasn't new to drugs. They smoked cannabis daily, drank heavily in the past, and had plenty of psychedelic experience with mushrooms, LSD, and other research chemicals. But nothing in their history prepared them for what was about to happen. Without further ado, let's dive into the report of Joan Moreau. Given the fact that I am still alive today, I feel it my responsibility to report on the hell that has been the past few days. It is my hope that my first-hand experience with this malevolent substance can add to the canon of evidence regarding these incidents and, hopefully, help our community determine what went wrong. Everything I am writing is based upon my best recollection, which is severely altered, so please bear with me. As, hopefully, all know by now, something terribly, horribly toxic was packaged by HUPT-RC, sold as 2C-B-FLY, and distributed to an unknown quantity of purchasers around the world in the last 2 weeks. I, unfortunately, was one of the people who received a nice little letter from Denmark containing the faux 2C-B-FLY, let's call it Chemex. I placed my order on September 28th. I received an email from Mr. Haupt on October 1st stating that my order would be mailed that same day. On Wednesday, October 7th, I received the envelope in Barcelona, Spain. It went directly into the drawer of my desk and was not touched until Saturday, October 10th. On this day, at approximately 1:45 p.m, I broke out the Chemex and some other recent purchases, the comparatively benign MDAI and JWH-073, in order to confirm their weight. I weighed first the MDAI and JWH-073. I used a milligram scale with a small, circular metal tray. After I weighed each substance, I poured the weighed material back into its original bag, tapping the rear of the tray as best I could to remove all residual powder. Of course, there is always a fine layer of material left behind. Finally, I opened the bag of 1,000 milligrams of Chemex and began to pour it into the tray. The first thing that struck me was the immense volume that such a weight occupied. In comparison with the previously weighed substances, each of whose 1,000 milligrams easily fit in the scales tray, the Chemex was extremely fluffy. It was much fluffier than any other 2Cs I have been in contact with as well. In addition, it was a fine powder, but with small clumps throughout the bag. I could only fit approximately 700 milligrams on the tray at once, so I weighed the bag in 2 goes. 700 milligrams the first time, and the remaining 300 milligrams the second time. The bag weighed perfectly. Mr. Haupt, God rest his soul, was an honest, if ill-prepared, chemical salesman. I replaced as much of the Chemex as I could into its bag. I then tapped the back of the tray to get as much as I could back in. Of course, there is always a fine layer of material left behind. So, at 2 p.m, in a moment of heightened ignorance, I wiped all of the Chemex residue onto my finger, enough to turn the tip of my index finger white, and licked it. That is to say, I wiped the material into the inside of my mouth opposite the lower lip. Additionally, I picked up a small clump of Chem-X that had fallen on the table and put it under my tongue. Though I really have no accurate manner of judging it, I believe I may have ingested anywhere from 1 to 5 milligrams of the substance. That is my best estimate. Though it may have been more, I really have no idea. At T plus 1 hour, 15, my friend came over to my house. I told him I had lipped some of this material and I was feeling a bit weird. Not tripping, but feeling like I had a bunch of weird drugs working their way through my system. He noted that I looked a bit fucked up when he arrived. He suggested that it may be because I had combined residual amounts of MDAI, JWH, 073, and Chem-X. I agreed and thought nothing more of it. At T plus 1 hour 45, we smoked a king-size spliff comprised of approximately 1/3 gram of Moroccan hash and 20 milligrams, weighed, of JWH 073, evenly distributed through the tobacco of 1 cigarette. I noticed smoking the joint got me much higher than normal, and I am a daily marijuana user. I had also previously tested the JWH 073 without experiencing a similar reaction. The feeling was not so much the lazy, heavy stonedness of the Moroccan chocolate, nor the spacey, dopey high of the JWH 073, but rather, I began losing my train of thought easily, and it was rather difficult to speak. At T plus 2 hours, we finished smoking and went to the store to get some food, water, and snacks. When I was in the grocery store, I had no idea what I should be getting, even though it was Saturday, and I needed to buy my food for that day and the following. Stores are closed Sunday here. I ended up with an odd assortment of soft beverages and random snack foods. We walked back to my house, and on the way, I noticed it felt very off to be walking. There was a feeling in my feet that made every step feel unnatural. Once we made it back to my house at approximately T plus 2 hours, 30, the intensity was still approximately the same as it had been since we smoked. I couldn't say I was tripping, but I felt like there were some really weird drugs pulsing through my system. I prepared a pizza from a fresh crust, with olive oil, tomato, cheese, bacon, and goat cheese. I put it in the oven, and my friend and I began watching a TV episode in the living room. While it was baking, I began noting my first hints of visuals looking at the walls of the living room and the abstract paintings that are hung there. By 3 hours, I could barely cut the pizza, let alone eat it. The medallions of goat cheese appeared to be morphing white cesspools on a bed of brown flesh and bubbling blood. Somehow, I got myself to eat 2 or 3 pieces. It tasted good, though after I'd done so, my stomach began aching quite a bit. At approximately T plus 3 hours, 15, my friend went home to take a siesta, and from here is when things get blurry. From this point, it is very difficult for me to describe or categorize the way I was feeling, but I'll do my best. I said okay, and goodbye, but barely noticed when he left. We were supposed to meet with some friends at a bar at 11 o'clock that night. That didn't happen. I put the Beatles' Rubber Soul on my iTunes and laid down on the sofa. All I wanted to do was not move and keep my eyes closed. The music sounded pretty good, and soon incredible psychedelic scenes were unfolding beneath my eyelids. Such intense closed eye visuals I've never experienced before. During this time, my mum called from my home country, and I didn't answer because I was too fucked up. That could have been my last chance to talk to her. Thank God it wasn't. Kids, always answer your mum's phone calls. I continued feeling more and more lethargic and was in a state somewhere between sleep and consciousness when at about T plus 3 hours 15, my roommate came into the living room and roused me. He began talking to me in Spanish, and I could barely comprehend what he was saying, let alone start speaking to him. I told him as best I could that last night was rough, that I wasn't feeling well, and I needed to rest. I must have looked crazy and horrible fucked up. I went into my room and lay down on my bed. The music was still playing, but it sounded really loud. I couldn't even bring myself to reach over and turn it down. For the next hour, I was in a nearly catatonic state, unable and not wanting to move. Eyes closed the whole time. I couldn't keep them open. However, during this time, effects kept getting worse. Not in a linear manner, but rather in what seemed an exponential manner. It was 23 degrees Celsius, 74 Fahrenheit outside, yet I was freezing. I was under all of the covers in my bed, yet I began sweating immensely. I couldn't tell if I was awake or sleeping, conscious or unconscious. It seemed I was somewhere in between the two. This scared me a bit. At approximately T plus 5 hours, I began getting really worried, so I forced myself to sit up, decided to take a hot shower to see if that would help. It didn't. I was still extremely flushed, cold, and perspiring what seemed like gallons of sweat. Mentally, I was a bit delirious. Not in a psychedelic, conscious, shifting way, but in an uncontrollable, disoriented sort of way. Then, at approximately T plus 5 hours, 15, I logged online and searched Google. I came upon Erowid and my heart dropped when I saw the photo of the same exact bag that was sitting on my desk. I became angry, agitated, and threw the bag and threw some stuff off my desk. A violent reaction like this is not in my character at all. Then, at T plus 5 hours 25, I posted the following on Blue Light. I may have accidentally ingested some of this about 5.5 hours ago. Help. What do I do? Thankfully, the board instantly made me realise the gravity of the situation, especially Del Simfan, who stated there was about a 6-hour delay before things got really bad. He was 100% right. I threw on clothes and shoes as quickly as I could in my condition, put the bag of Chem X in my pocket, and began walking as fast as I could to the nearest subway station, about 700 metres. During this walk, I began feeling amazing pulses of energy coming through my brain, but not in a good way. It felt like there was a fireworks show going off in my head. These weird surges would continue randomly until the following day. They were very disturbing and concerned me that some major neurological damage may have been done. I must have looked like a lunatic, and I sure felt like one. I was completely out of it, walking through intersections with complete disregard for cross-traffic. The weird feeling in my feet I mentioned earlier had intensified significantly, and I found myself questioning if I could make it to the hospital on my own. I was debating between calling an ambulance and taking the subway, but I finally reached the stop just as a train was arriving. In the metro, I don't remember anything, just dropping buckets of sweat everywhere. Effects were still getting stronger, and I was unsure if I'd be able to walk under my own power into the hospital. Finally, 3 stops later, I arrived to the hospital, and after nearly being hit by a bus crossing the street, ran into the ER waiting room. I cut everyone in line, ran to the check-in desk, and began spitting out my story in Spanish as best I could. The check-in nurse pointed to a staircase and said to go down there ASAP. I took myself into the triage area and explained again the story. The attending nurses were freaking out over the whole thing. I wrote down on a piece of paper the name of Haupt, his website, Erowid, the name of the supposed chem, and Blue Light. I told them I had eaten contaminated 2C-B-FLY and gave them the baggie. I was admitted at T plus 5 hours 55. They put me in a wheelchair and rushed me to the ER. I could barely stand as I had to take off my clothes. They were so wet it felt like I had gone swimming in them. They put me in a gown and went to work. They connected 14 or more EKG probes all over my body and kept me hooked up to that to monitor my heart's functioning. They also brought some special type of cardiac monitoring machine, no idea the name, and hooked me up to it. They drew blood for analysis and at about T plus 6 hours 30 gave me 2 diazepam, I think 10 milligrams each. The doctor told me all he could do was give me the diazepam, keep the monitors attached and stand by in case they needed to intervene. The rest was on my body to fight through. I have to say, there was a good period there when I didn't feel like I was going to make it. Finally, the diazepam began to ease my extreme tachycardia and lower the blood pressure. However, there was some worry as my diastolic BP began dropping below 60 as my systolic stayed high. Don't know what it means, but the docs were a bit worried. Thank God it passed. Now, diazepam is known for killing trips, but it merely dulled this one. The visuals and deliria persisted through the dosage of Valium, though it did sedate me a bit. I must say though, I truly believed the diazepam given to me when it was helped prevent me from suffering major cardiovascular issues, as I had troubling levels of tachycardia and blood pressure. Exact numbers I don't know. In fact, I believe it may be a major reason why I am still here today to write this report. Now, for the next few hours, I don't remember much. Just the screams and unpleasant noises from the ER seemed amplified in volume and magnified in the way they disturbed me. The open-eyed visuals continued distorting objects for hours. I thought a lot about how this would be such a horrible way to go, especially for my family and friends. What would it do to them for me to leave them like that? Over something so stupid, preventable, and especially without telling them goodbye and that I loved them. I was determined to walk out of that hospital. I'm not a religious man, but by God, I prayed my ass off that night. Finally, at approximately T plus 14 hours 30, the doctor told me he was discharging me. I told him I didn't think I was ready to go, but he told me that if I'd made it this far, I would be okay. Unsure, thinking of how Haupt died so far into his trip after sleeping, I reluctantly agreed and began to get ready to go home. I still felt awful, like I should be dead. I still could barely walk, and I was still mentally out of it. Somehow, though, I made it home and posted an update on blue light. The hallucinations had mostly gone, but the psychological and physical effects maintained their toxic presence in my system. My posting from T plus 15 hours, 35 accurately reflects how I was feeling. I don't know if high is the right way to put it. Not right would be more accurate. Like, I'm not tripping, but I definitely still feel like I have poison inside of me. I didn't want to leave the hospital, but they made me. At that point, I still felt unsure I was going to be okay. I was still afraid to sleep because of what I'd read about Haupt's passing, but finally, at T plus 16 hours, I turned off the laptop and tried to get some sleep. I got a horrible night's sleep, maybe 4.5 or 5 hours of oft-interrupted slumber. Probably never got more than 30 minutes consecutive of sleep. Finally, at about T plus 21 hours, I woke up and lay in bed, feeling like I should be dead. Both my head and body felt absolutely awful, like I had been poisoned and that poison was still inside of me. At about T plus 21 hours 30, still laying in bed and not feeling any better, I was at a loss for what to do. A little while later, I called my friend Vida Verde, and she told me to come over to her place right away. Since then, I have been under her watchful eye, and she has been the most amazing, wonderful friend and nurse anyone could ask for. At T plus 24 hours, she gave me 1 milligram clonazepam, and that really helped me. The rest of the day I spent feeling not right. I don't know how to explain it. It really is impossible to describe. I didn't feel like myself. I could still feel the Chem-X just marinating in my system doing bad things. I didn't move from her couch nearly the whole day, and the time just passed by without me noticing. I felt horrible, physically. I felt like I shouldn't be here. At T plus 34 hours, I took another 1 milligram clonazepam and proceeded to fall asleep on Vida Verde's sofa. I was out within 3 minutes and didn't wake up for almost 11 hours. When I woke up at approximately 45 hours later, I felt refreshed physically, but my brain still felt odd. Now, at nearly T plus 50 hours, though physically feeling stronger, I still don't feel right. I'm sorry, I can't be more specific. There is just no way for me to verbalize the way my head feels. Physically, I'm still lethargic and without any motivation to do anything. It has taken me several hours to write this report. I have no appetite. Vida Verde's been giving me little bits of food, and I've been eating it, but I have no physical nor mental urge to do so. I have been drinking a saline and electrolyte solution that has been helping a lot to replenish the salts and minerals I lost through the flushing and sweating. Now, T plus 50 hours, I still don't feel normal. I hope I do soon. Right now, I am thankful that I'm alive and able to be here writing this report. Thanks to everyone at Blue Light for their advice, concern, and support. I am thankful for the hospital employees for trying to help me, and I am especially thankful for Vida Verde's companionship and support throughout this ordeal. The recovery would have been immeasurably worse if I'd had to suffer through it alone. Thanks to everyone, and I hope that this report may contribute in some way to understanding what exactly was in that batch of 2C-B-FLY. That was Joan Moreau's terrifying account from Erowid, posted back in October 2009. What he thought was 2C-B-FLY turned out to be Bromo-DragonFLY, and that single mistake almost cost him his life. It's stories like this that remind us why harm reduction matters. Always test your substances, always know what you're taking, and remember, just because it comes in a bag with a label doesn't mean it's safe. Thanks so much for watching the Bad Trip Files. If you found this story eye-opening, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss more true accounts of trips gone wrong and the lessons they carry. Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next story.